Welcome back to the Blue White Players Show. I'm Aeneas Hawkins. That's Keith Goon Conlon, my man, 1-0, presented by our friends over at Ciocca dealerships. We can never forget that. Goon, Penn State back in the win column this week. We watched the game together Saturday. Outstanding tailgate, by the way.
We do aim to please is what we do.
I had a great time. When you watch those Nittany Lions on Saturday, a closer game than I expected, than I know a lot of people were expecting. Yeah. What did you take away from that game?
Well, yeah, definitely. There's definitely a little hangover from the Ohio State game, fan-wise. I mean, we could tell that it was a noon game, but I could tell you that at 10 o'clock in the morning that it was going to be a little slow and then not really that loud and crazy in the stadium. It's a tough game to come back from Ohio State. So players had a little hangover, obviously.
Yeah.
As you could tell out there, they weren't exactly crisp and sharp. And you had Indiana come out there, and Indiana played pretty well. I mean, we should have blown their doors in, which didn't happen, but we got through it. And there's always that one game. Chris Buchanani, the producer here, was talking off the air. Like, every team has that one game where you should just blow their doors in, and it just doesn't happen. And it just seems to happen to us recently in Penn State after losses. I mean, after buys and after losses have been tough for us to rebound from.
Well, I think that's an interesting point because, I mean, the numbers are what they are. Like you said, historically over the last several seasons under the Coach Franklin tenure, there has been a struggle, and there has been that hangover after those big losses to big teams, and then after bye weeks. As a player, as a former player, can you speak a little bit more into why that actually is?
Well, I mean, this is what it's all about, 1-0 mentality. So that Ohio State, if we're talking about, win or lose, on Sunday morning, we're on to the next game.
Right.
So that just doesn't seem to be carrying over after losses. And give Indiana some credit. I mean, they actually played their best game they have all year. I had watched them a few games before. They were okay. We made them look a little bit better than we should have. But I mean, what's the silver lining? And that is that when we needed our sophomore quarterback to step up, he throws one hell of a pass to win that game. It was an absolute just beautiful pass.
Beautiful pass. And let's talk about the offense. We'll get into the defense shortly, but Drew Aller obviously coming off of a tough performance against Ohio State. The first time we really see some chinks in the armor, and we see the moment maybe being a little bit too big on that particular Saturday. He comes back, he throws his first interception. Let's take note here, though. Yeah. The literal most attempts to begin a college career without throwing interception in FBS history. That is impressive, and it's a testament to who he is as a decision maker. Throws the interception, comes back and throws that beautiful deep ball to Dre Lambert. What did you see from that guy right there in that moment? And as a player that played offense, what type of confidence does that give you moving forward, watching your young quarterback grow up like that?
I cannot tell you the confidence he has right now. I mean, really, he went from the lowest of lows, which is at Ohio State. And, people can say that too much was expected of him and this and that. He didn't shy away from it. He wanted that team on his shoulders versus Ohio State in Columbus. So very tough place to play in Columbus. So we come back the next week, and he's not lighting the world on fire. I loved his answer about his interception. He says, I didn't even know I threw an interception. I thought we were punting, and then I looked up on everybody's cheering the defense on. He goes, I really didn't, because he got hit on that play. He goes, I really didn't think that I threw an interception. He goes, I just thought we were punting. But, defense came up and stepped up, and they helped him out a whole bunch this past weekend. And then, again, like I said, his confidence has got to be pretty high right now after that pass to end the game. Just, again, what was your – like, well, you had to have a game where you're just like – I guess that 2020 year is just so funky. I don't even want to – I don't know.
Yeah.
There's nothing that needs to be talked about that season. No fans, nothing. Geez.
That was a miserable year.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Just to give a little backstory on that before we get back to the point, we played Ohio State at home, Beaver Stadium, and obviously those games are typically 110,000 plus in the stands. It's loud. We're on the sideline, and we can hear Justin Fields making his play calls. We're looking at cardboard all throughout. It was like practicing. Like, it felt like a 17-period practice. Completely abnormal. But, back to Drew, I think, a lot of people, myself included, have wondered why Penn State football hasn't stretched the field, specifically the middle of the field. You got two guys in Theo Johnson and Tyler Warren who are more than capable of going and making plays. That was my biggest positive of the weekend. Watching Drew Aller just throw that ball to Theo Johnson in man coverage down the seam, giving his guy a shot to go make a play, and he ultimately scores. To me, that's a great sign of development, trusting his weapons and giving him a chance to make a play.
Speaking of development, we're going into the week 9 here.
Yeah.
We're still waiting for our offensive line to gel and that run game to really take a game over.
Yeah.
That's very concerning. I mean, we sat there all year saying, you know what? They're getting their feet wet. They're letting Aller get used to being in the pocket and throwing the balls around, being a quarterback, so they're not going to really demand or make them run the ball so much. But we're paying for that now because when we need those yards to run, we're not getting them.
Yeah, and what's going to happen is what we've seen happen. We talked about it a little bit at the tailgate. And my concern after the Ohio State game was not, they lost to a top 5 team. It wasn't what a lot of people were thinking, but it was that Ohio State's defense kind of put together a blueprint, at least after what we had seen, for how to slow down that Penn State offense, with the run game not being where you want it to be at this point of the season. And with the receivers, until last week, really not stepping up and being able to beat man coverage like Ohio State kind of put on film. There are going to be more defenses in the future that stack those boxes and they play man coverage until they feel like they're threatened on the outside. And we saw a little bit of that when they played Indiana. We saw some corrections. We saw some growth there, which is a positive thing. But you bring up a great point. Heading into Maryland, a team who is up and down, but when they're up, they're good enough to play with the best of them in the Big Ten, as we saw against Ohio State.
Athletically, they are just as good as us. I mean, that's their MO for decades.
No doubt about it. And the same way, my generation of Penn State football players looks at the Ohio State matchup and looks at the Michigan matchup is how Maryland really approaches our games when they play us. Now, it's obviously not very successful. I remember when they did the blackout in 2019 at Maryland and they canceled school. And then we walked in and beat them by 60. And their student section became our student section. But it's a big game for them nonetheless. We're going to get their best effort. They're always going to come play tough. So to me, the run game has to get going, especially, let's not even talk Michigan. At some point, you're going to need to be able to pull that out successfully, which was noticeably absent in that Ohio State game 2 weeks ago.
We need to start putting sustained drives together to keep our defense fresh.
Yes.
Because what's going to happen is if we don't get manhandled by Maryland this week, and there's chances that could happen. I mean, I know Maryland's is in a complete free fall right now, but they're going to be up for this game. I mean, you've lived with enough Maryland guys.
Oh man, I mean, we're going to joke about Maryland guys today again. I mean, we do it every week.
But those guys have to go home, and the guys who actually go to Maryland were the ones who wanted to go to Penn State. They didn't get in here.
Yep.
They weren't offered. They have a chip on their shoulder.
It's personal.
It is personal to them.
Right.
And if our guys don't realize that, we're going to get clipped. It's going to happen. It's a possibility of it happening. I do not want to think it or see it.
Well,
but if we're not ready for it, we play like we did on Saturday. Do we beat Maryland?
No. They got.
Then I watched Maryland lose to Northwestern, and I'm like, damn, there goes that whole point. And it is.
Now I will say, I'll play devil's advocate here because you do bring up a good point with Maryland guys. Maryland football players specifically being guys who wanted to go to Penn State. Yep. And maybe didn't have that opportunity. The other side of it here is that a lot of Penn State guys are from Maryland. So that game for them can also be personal. I mean, the way guys like Devon Elise, Curtis Jacobs are going to wake up to play against a bunch of those guys they grew up playing against is going to be fun to watch. So I'm looking forward.
They're having 42 people in their
no doubt about it. It's a homecoming.
So they're playing home games for them.
No doubt.
And that's always great because I remember always playing Temple. And literally having my greatest games, I used to just wail on people.
Right.
Like, damn, what the hell got into you? I don't know.
No doubt.
You used to play in front of your friends and your family. I mean, we got the great OG coming on later.
I can't wait.
That's his alma mater. So I want to talk about some. He's just walking in. No, we don't need you yet. No, he disappears. I said OG just goes around the corner
I'm here. I have arrived.
He's got a Batman cape, Superman cape on. Jeez. But no, there's a guy when a Maryland guy goes down to Maryland, it's a big thing for them to go down there and play that game. It's in Bird Stadium, fantastic place to play. The crowd is, we think Ohio State people are brutal.
Oh, man. Maryland
people are absolutely horrendous. Can I tell you one? You want a little
Please,
story time?
I love story time.
93, I think we're up like 711-0 at one point. It was my first career start.
Okay.
93. We were running into the end zone for like our 15th touchdown of the game, and a bottle of Jack Daniels came out of the crowd.
Oh, no way.
And hit off our fullback's shin because it caused a welt on his shin that it was there for like a couple of days. Hit off of his shin, and it hit Kyle Brady's helmet.
Oh, man.
And I'm talking spattered into a billion pieces.
Oh, that's no good.
So literally half of our offensive line we had like like dust on our glass dust on our face.
That's no good.
And then if you go and touch your helmet, your hand would be all sliced up from all the glass particles. And you're just like, that's just classless, and they just don't know how to win or lose down there.
They don't. I'll tell you what, there aren't many places that you can get away with throwing bottles of liquor at teenagers and not see any type of legal repercussions. But college football is a crazy, crazy place. I do want to ask you quickly before we get to the break eventually that defense that we saw from Penn State, we saw a couple chinks in the armor. One of the touchdowns being sort of a trick play. Maryland kind of sneaks a receiver off of the field. He stops. They snap the ball. Indiana, wide open touchdown. We saw a couple breakdowns in coverage. Are you concerned with Penn State's defense going into Maryland and Michigan, or do you feel like they're still going to stay the course and be an elite unit?
Only thing I'm worried about, and this sometimes happens, and you've actually heard me ask you this, like when your offense is sluggish and your defense is really playing hard, but the defense has to carry the offense multiple plays, series, and games, it starts to wear. Yeah. And you start getting into some locker room friction. And that's what I'm sort of worried about right now, and that is that we go into Maryland, and we could talk about Michigan. We go to Maryland, Michigan, and we're not having good drives on offense, and we are hanging our defense out to dry. Like, hey, you guys got to stop these guys for the 16th time today.
Right.
Like, those teams are too good to be, putting all that pressure on your defense. So offense has got to get their act together, start putting some longer drives together, running the freaking football, taking a lot of pressure off that defense, because the defense will wear out. And look what happened last year when Michigan wore us out last year. We give up 423 rushing yards.
Yeah. I think
about that. Say that out loud.
I don't even want to say that out loud.
423 yards against a Penn State defense.
It makes you want to throw
rushing,
up, man.
Not offense.
No
rushing.
Doubt. That's never what you want to see. You bring up a good point. Number one on the draining that can take place when your offense is struggling. That's real, and I think the positive thing here for the defense is they still do have a ton of belief in Drew. They know what Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are. They still have hope that offense is going to click and they're going to figure it out and they'll be more consistent. So I don't see that as a huge problem, but you bring up a good point with the repetitions that the defense takes when you're unable to run the ball and stay on the field. Every defense, no matter how talented, because of how much energy you have to expend to play high-level defense, is going to get to a certain rep count, and you'll see that performance drastically decline throughout the course of a game. So finding ways, every defense in the world is like that. That's just the reality of football. So you got to find ways offensively, like you said, to extend some drives and keep your defense fresh to give them the best chance to compete against the likes of Michigan.
Yeah, so I'm sitting there talking about my 94 team. Our defense hated us because we were scoring with under 2 minutes. Our average drive was less than 2 minutes.
That's the problem.
So they get a turnover. We're turning in the 6 points in 3 plays or less. And they're like, can we at least get a glass of water here? I mean, something. I'm like, anything, just to let me sit down for 3 minutes
That's it.
to relax before we have to go out there. And what happened is that in our 94 team is our defense got just beat to hell. I mean, our D-line, I mean, probably the amount of games missed between our 4 defensive linemen was a lot. Yeah. More so than any other team I've ever been around, because they were just getting chewed up because, one, other teams were like, we're not giving Penn State the ball. We have to run the ball. We got to
slow them down.
We have to run the ball. We can't give Penn State the ball. So we got to run. So then the running, chasing a quarterback is tough.
Yeah.
But playing against the run every play, you definitely get beat up.
It's like getting in a fist fight every play for 60 minutes in a row.
Absolutely. And then, we go out there, we're all clean uniform, barely even sweating.
Just hanging out, running play action.
Gary throws the ball. Play action. Kijana throws it to Bobby. Bobby scores.
You're just hanging out.
We get an extra point. We're going to have Mai Tais on the sideline. Defensive line's all mad at us.
We will come right. Are we bringing Rogers Alexander's on when we get back?
I don't know. Is the OG ready?
Is the OG ready?
Is he out of the telephone
OG's
booth?
ready. We will be right back on the Blue White Players Show with the legendary Rogers Alexander. Stay tuned.
Ciocca Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here. Ciocca Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here and on the way. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Choose Ciocca Toyota of Williamsport and see the Ciocca dealership's difference. Buy or reserve yours today and see for yourself why Ciocca Toyota is the only stop you need for your next new car. Ciocca Toyota, it just feels right.
Old Dominion. No Bad Vibes Tour. Friday, December 1st. Bryce Jordan Center. With special guest Chase Rice and Kylie Morgan. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Old Dominion, live in concert. Brought to you by Messina Touring Group.
It's frustrating when people intervene on you, but they have problems of their own. It's like when someone sends you a text, but the text comes from their email address. I hate this. Your name at iCloud, they FaceTime you from their email address? Are you calling on a child's iPad?
Emmy Award-winning comedian John Mulaney brings his new tour, John Mulaney in Concert, Bryce Jordan Center, December 3rd. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com.
WWE returns to Penn State's Bryce Jordan Center with the WWE Live Holiday Tour. Sunday night, December 10th, you'll see World Heavyweight Champion Seth freakin' Rollins, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes.
May the best man win.
WWE Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley, Bobby Lashley, Becky Lynch, and more. Tickets start at $20. They make great holiday gifts. Get yours now at Ticketmaster.
It's Jeff Dunham on his all-new tour, still not canceled.
Yes, I make a living talking to myself, which means some forms of mental illness actually pay off. Is it bad that I unplugged my cousin's life support to charge my phone? Oh, shut the hell up.
Friday, March 22nd, Bryce Jordan Center. Tickets on sale now, only at JeffDunham.com. Don't miss him.
Silence! I kill you!
Jeff Dunham on his all-new tour, still not canceled.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
Welcome back to the Blue White Players Show presented by Ciocca Dealerships. We're joined once again by the legend himself, Rogers Alexander. Rogers, before I ask you anything else, you watched the Penn State-Indiana game. How did you feel leaving?
Fortunate, I guess I would say. It's a young team, and coming off of a big game where you lose, and it's your first loss. Usually with a young team, there's a little bit of a sluggishness or letdown, and it's not on purpose. It's just, they're young kids, and they're disappointed, and all the parents out there know exactly what I'm talking about. Your kids kind of, they take it to heart, and they don't realize that they're physically and also emotionally reacting, even though they don't know it. So that's probably part of, some of the things. But the other things, that were going on were effort, execution, not being held accountable. So there were some things that were bothersome this late in the season.
When you look at an offense who has struggled to get the run game going, what type of things do you see when you watch Penn State football that need to be corrected to get that going the right direction again?
Well, there were more than several bad steps by offensive linemen, missing blocks completely, heads down, and then lack of effort after missing the first step, after missing and not trying to catch up or at least, hit someone else.
Yep.
So, and that's effort. So that's the bothersome when everybody's going to make mistakes, but it's when you start feeling sorry for yourself after making a mistake, and then you don't then continue to play hard. You just sort of stop. Then it gets worse.
Yeah, my biggest thing in football when I was coaching, and then how we were coached, was if you're going to make a mistake, just make it to 1,000 miles an hour.
Yep.
Just get in somebody's way. Don't just sit there and go look back and try to reverse your path and try to make that block. Just continue on, do something, make something happen. You can't, and then with effort, you can't teach that. I mean, there's just one of those things that's like, say you do miss a block, but you know what? You're going to run downfield. You might spring that running back and you hit the defensive back. So it is all about effort and guys going out there and having that attitude. And it was just a lethargic effort across the board.
Yeah.
And I was telling Aeneas before, you've been in enough locker rooms where you had a slow offense and the defense is getting really, really upset with that. And there's definitely some stuff that goes on and said in locker rooms. I don't think we're to that point yet at all, but there's definitely a threat of that. If offense comes out slow and sluggish again, and Maryland's putting points up on our defense because our defense is slow and tired because they're out there so much, there's going to be issues.
More than likely that, I guess it just depends on your team. I was on a couple of teams where our defense just said, just score 10 and we've got you. But nowadays, with the number of plays that are played on offense, that's an unrealistic expectation. It's more like, can you keep them under 25? Can you keep them to 3 touchdowns and a field goal or something around there?
I was watching
because of the number of possessions.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that's that was an eye opener for me coming back in town to be able to look at practice 6-7 years ago and watching kids practice and seeing the 20-hour rule, which we didn't have. So things that we used to do in practice.
Started laughing at 20 hours.
Well, because the things that we used to do in practice fundamentally are some of the things that the coaches, they just don't have time to go over those when you've got offenses that have several hundred plays that they'll run over a 1 or 2 game period. And you want to give your players at least one look at least one of the plays. So that's it's a difficult thing to try and get in fundamentals, especially after the season starts.
Yep.
Yes, early in the season, yes, but and as kids get tired, especially as they're out on the field a long time, then those kind of arm tackles, shoulder flipper tackles, I call them, where guys are throwing their forearm and elbow out to try and knock you down instead of wrapping up. You start to see those kinds of tackles more often, and that's a sign of them being tired.
I want to bring a point up off of that because I think you say something interesting. I obviously didn't play in that. You guys didn't have a 20-hour rule. You guys practice at a much different level than what guys practice at now. Even with all the developments in sports science, nutrition, and bigger weight rooms, there is a certain value, I'd imagine, with practicing so physical and so hard day in and day out. I'll tell you what, as a guy who played recently, coming out of camp, and camp practices are still tough in 2023. It's physical, it's violent, it's all those things. The football camp is hot, all of those things. We make a transition after camp into more normal practice, more standard practice for the season. And right after camp, football feels like a breeze every day. When you're on a normal schedule with what it is now in 2023, it's such an easy transition. By the end of the year, though, because we're not hitting as much, because we're not going through some of those tackling drills, like you said, some of those fundamental things become a lot tougher, and you don't play in the same shape that you were in August. Do you feel like there is that drastic of a difference between how you guys practice and we did.
Well, my personal opinion is I think that there's much technology is taking a big place in college football nowadays, where you're expected to watch a ton of film on your own.
Yep.
So when Rodgers is saying, you know, there's certain plays that you may not have seen in practice. When he was practicing, when I was practicing, we saw that defense that was like may come up in the game. We saw it 17 times.
Right.
He saw every offensive play that Maryland could run.
Yep.
17 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then they made coaching points off of that. But now with the restrictions on the time and the technology, I mean, there's no way is this knocking the new generation. I mean, you're getting a laptop with all the practices on there and all of their favorite plays on 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, and this, and you're on your time to watch all that. Where when we practiced and played, it was part of our, you know, our meeting time and stuff like that on the field. And I mean, I could tell you, and Rodgers could probably say the same thing. I never saw a thing on a college football field that I was not prepared for.
Never.
That's pretty damn unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, with everything that you got to be prepared for in college, that speaks to how much time you guys are really spending in film, and you were spending going over those things. That's not how it's just not enough time to do those things anymore with the new rules. I do want to ask you, Rodgers, obviously a Maryland guy, the math legend.
Baby.
Big matchup this weekend. Heading into this as a Maryland guy.
3 miles down the street from my high school.
3 miles down the street from the high school. Talk to me about what this game means.
I will be watching this game with Penn Staters at a wedding in South Carolina.
Okay.
That's the other thing that's come to much fun.
So
we can watch Penn State games anywhere.
The over under bet is because it's a Penn State lacrosse player who used to play here who's getting married.
Okay.
So the over under on how many heads are down during the ceremony in the lap, we were trying to, and then we finally said, okay. The bride and groom said, okay, we got to change this. So the party is on Saturday and the wedding is on Sunday.
Okay, they thought that through. I was about to say,
if good work.
If you're a
all Penn State people,
so not all Penn State people, but the
groom
and everyone, half the people in the wedding are for Penn State. So
New Yorkers or Marylanders,
Long Island people. So
see, when Rodgers and I was here, the lacrosse was only in 2 places.
Yeah.
New York and then the Baltimore area.
Yep.
And now it's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere.
It's a sensation now. I played lacrosse at one point. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? I was a JV lacrosse player in high school.
As a senior?
I might as well have been. I was a horrible lacrosse athlete. That's okay.
Oh,
it's okay. We tried something new. That's
actually pretty good.
What's that?
It's great for staying in shape.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Hand-eye coordination.
We had a big lacrosse program at Moeller High School, and all of our best linebackers, safeties were all the best lacrosse players as well. There's so much crossover there. It's an easy way to prepare. I don't want to get away from this. Obviously,
you said viewing party Saturday, right, for his wedding?
Yeah, for his wedding. Well, I'll tell you what. If you're not going to join Rodgers in South Carolina for this wedding,
thanks for the invite, Rod.
Yeah, thanks, Rodgers. We really appreciate that.
Open bar.
You need to stop on down to the 19th hole. Keith, Goon, Conlon, and friends are going to be here watching the Penn State-Maryland game, having a good time. Goon, what do you have to say to the people back home who may join you for this?
Bring it on, baby. Let's go.
It's a good time watching Penn State football with Goon. Come on down to the 19th hole.
We got 6 televisions in here right now. We'll have I believe Georgia is playing. Has a pretty good game this week at 3:30. Or maybe Oregon. There's a pretty good game at 3:30 at the same time as Penn State.
That'll be fun.
So
plenty of TVs.
Multiple TVs. We'll have something going on there. But the food, the booze is all great here. So
doesn't get much better.
Nah, buddy.
Looking forward to this Maryland game. Have you been able to watch any Maryland this year?
Yes.
What are going to be some of the keys to victory for Penn State football to go down there and find success on the road?
I think containing and not necessarily to sack their quarterback. It's to contain him. The off-schedule type plays where he gets pressure and he steps to the side and then he starts and looks like he's going to run and then somebody falls off their coverage thinking he is, and then they get the big play. As long as they can limit the big plays and guys can get lined up before the play starts, not as the play is starting, they're going to try and use a lot of motion. They're going to take advantage of some of the mistakes that they've been seeing in the last 3 games. All smart teams do that.
Yep.
But they're also going to go back a ways and run some things that the guys haven't seen in a while to see if they still remember, their adjustments to them. So especially when it gets late in the season, because if your legs and things are tired because you're out on the field a lot, then you start to get mentally tired and mentally drained.
Yep.
Nias, do me a favor, as a defensive tackle, defensive lineman, explain to the people what staying in your lane means. Not in the real world.
I was about to say.
Not in the real world when you're yelling at people.
No.
When you're talking about a quarterback like young Tua.
Yeah, well, Talia Tagovailoa, for those of you who don't know, is the little brother of Tua, who's in the MVP race in the NFL, outstanding quarterback. Not as much arm talent as Big Bro, but he is a much, much better athlete. He is quick. He can run. He likes to extend plays with his feet.
Lamar Jackson.
He's a very Lamar Jackson type. The thing that makes him dangerous, that makes him an above-average quarterback at the college level, is that he can get out the quarterback, out of the pocket and extend plays with his feet. You contain that guy. You put constant pressure on him. Penn State's D-line does have the athletes to do that with the D size. They can Chop Robinson and company. You force him in bad positions, and that is where he makes his mistakes. You watch Talia over the last few years. You put him under pressure and keep him contained in that box where he can't make a quick and easy escape. That's where he starts to struggle, and that's where I think Penn State can gain an advantage.
Yeah, so you have a defensive tackle, and he wants to go through the, say the B gap or whatever, but then he decides, I got a quicker path to go inside of this. He's going to read that and come right to that hole where you just diverted.
You can't make those mistakes. We used to always call it.
In your lane.
We used to call it keep him caged. So all of these D linemen, as they rush, have a target point. When you play a guy who can't move, the Ohio State kid Kyle McCord, who was a decent runner but not super mobile, not looking to do it, you can maybe take an inside move here and there because you're athletic enough to go get him. You get out of your lane with Talia for 1 second. I mean, he's a true 4.3, 4.4 guy. He's fast enough to really hurt you. That's what we're saying.
So
yeah.
We're good here. So, Raj, we were going to get into this. You had to expect it. I want to hear about this 85 Maryland Penn State game. I'm telling you right now, dude. I'm telling you, I have so many stories. I was a 10-year-old, 12-year-old kid out there watching the game. I have more stories about that game than any other Penn State game I've ever been to.
Yeah. I mean, between, me being,
from
Maryland, going to high school 3 miles down the street at DeMatha. And the combination of the 82 Maryland Penn State game when Maryland was number 1 in the country before the start of the season.
85, I thought.
Nah.
I thought 85 they were.
Hold on.
Okay. Sorry.
Hold on.
Boomer?
Yes.
Okay.
Boomer Esiason. They were number 1. Burdanik was the fullback. They had another All-American, first-team All-American offensive tackle. We weren't up there too high, but we weren't really down there too low. But people were expecting Maryland was going to finally establish itself as the premier college football team for that year with Boomer being there. And one of the things that's interesting about that is Maryland ran the same 3 offensive plays at the start of the game the previous season, every single game.
Jeez. Who broke that code?
So we didn't steal signals.
The hot button top subject now.
Here we go.
But one of the coaches who looked at last year's tapes kept thinking that he had, that was back before the internet. So it was on a reel-to-reel. So he kept thinking that he picked up the wrong film because he would look and it would be the same 3 plays, but it was a different game. So the coaches said, well, do you think they would do it again? Like continue what they did all last season again? And they did. So what we did was bait them the first play into what they thought they were going to see from us as an adjustment on the second play. And Mike Zordich picked off the ball and scored. And that was the difference in winning that game.
Give me some stories.
That was one of those plays that if that doesn't happen, we end up losing by 3 or 4 because we end up winning 20-18 on a missed field goal. I think it was a missed field goal at the end of the game, or that might have been the 80. That was the 85 game.
85 was Z-Man.
Yeah, and that was
85 was Z-Man.
Yeah.
That was the second play.
Yeah, second
85.
play. Yeah.
He ran down the. You remember Mikey Zordich? Was his father?
Yeah, that was
Ran down the sideline with one cleat on.
Yeah.
He lost his cleat. And his sock was flapping.
And that was impressive. Yeah, that was 85.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hottest day of my life.
Yeah.
Rob,
yeah. Oh, so hot. So hot. And of course, I missed an interception over the middle to seal the game a minute before that. And then I'm going, please miss the field goal. If they make the field goal and I lose, I'll never be able to show my face in the neighborhood again. You don't understand how many of my high school classmates were going to Maryland.
Well, real quick, a couple stories.
Go ahead, please.
Hottest day of my life. They had the fire trucks going down the sidelines, hosing people down.
It was that hot.
That was how hot it was. It was 108-degree temperature,
man,
and it's about 130 on the field. So
it's got to be dangerous at a certain point, no?
Some idiot at Maryland decided to keep their band in their wool costumes, and it was the funniest halftime show I've ever seen in my life. I'm telling you, at least 30. I'm 10 years old. I'm like, woohoo! I'm watching at least 30 people just boom, just collapse. I'm telling you, they're marching off the field, and there's like bodies all around, like it was like World War II.
It's 150 degrees. They're blowing all the. Oh man!
So I remember that. I remember how hot it was. I remember Z-Man's catch. And I remember my dad almost went to prison that day.
That was the only.
Are we just gonna leave that there?
Here's a good trivia question for you. That was the only game that Penn State never went into the locker room at halftime.
Mm. It was that hot. It was unbelievable.
Joe decided to keep us out sitting on a little
they
bank.
Were a JV 6th grade team.
That's nuts. Because everybody's sitting crisscross
applesauce. Who bought the oranges?
They were actually spraying fire hoses up in the air, and the mist was coming down. But by the time it got to you, it was like a warm shower.
It was bad, man.
That's how hot it was.
That sounds horrible.
I saw Trey Bauer in his linebacker stance go like right to his face first. After he had thrown up after making a bunch of calls. It was unbelievable.
Man.
So my father almost going to prison.
Okay, yeah, let's get back to that. Yeah.
Post game. People are gone. Everybody's out of there. My mom was about dead in the stands. I mean, she's done. It was hot as hell. She just wore out, done. And my dad walks down to the field, and the Penn State managers are dumping like buckets of ice out. And my dad's like, hey, let me get a cup of that. And those kids are 18 years old, and like, don't anybody touch anything from Penn State sideline.
Right.
So my dad goes to grab a cup of ice. And this kid's like, get your hands out of there, this and that. My dad looked at him, and the kid was like, oh, God. My dad was a huge man, right? And Spider comes running, and he goes, Mr. Conlon, whatever you need. He looks at the kid, and he goes, are you crazy? And my dad was like, I mean, if my dad had reached out and grabbed this kid, he'd have just broken his neck right then and there. His wife's up there, and she's dying, and she was hurt, and he's trying to get a bucket out. You can't touch that. The hell I can.
I was about to say,
yeah. And he was he tried to get my dad's face, and my dad was like,
oh man, not the day
Spider
for that.
saved you. Spider saved me from having to visit my dad in Rockville prison.
In Rockville, old Rockville. I will say the one note that I have that I wanted to speak to. I can't imagine a world in which, in the preseason, Maryland football is #1 in the country. They're the favorite to go win the national championship. I mean, that's pretty different.
They always had talent, man.
I didn't even know that Maryland was ever that good.
I
know all about. I'm a Cincinnati guy. You got to remember that. So I know who Boomer Esiason is, but I guess I just never made the connection that he played
Bobby
in Maryland or they were that
coach.
good. Yeah, I had no clue.
And what's his name? The Fridge. Ralph Friedgen was the OC on those teams.
Had no idea.
They had some talent, man. They had some coaching talent, but they beat Penn State one time, 1950 something.
Yeah,
61.
Wow.
And there was a tie in there one time, and then the 1 year that they wouldn't shake our hands.
Yep. Yeah.
Still infuriating.
They got us the 1 year. What year was it? It might have been COVID they beat us.
2020.
Was it 2021?
Yeah.
14 they wouldn't shake our hands and they beat us. Which made me ill to my stomach. That somebody would come into your house and disrespect.
They still play that highlight tape. They still let's actually tell that story real quick. Coach Franklin every year, and this has been made public.
Good.
every year in team meetings, that video comes up and we play it. Nobody says anything and we move on to the next slide of the team meeting. And we just remind everybody what's at stake here, the type of rivalry it is. So it's a lot of fun, that Maryland game, especially with all those Maryland kids on our team. It's a good time.
The rivalry was a little bit different back in the 80s.
Well, tell me about it as a Maryland guy.
Well, that's the thing. Like, Bobby Ross was the new head coach in '85, and he had
just got to '85.
He had made it a point to tell. Well, no, I think he was. He got there. Freshman.
He was there because I know he
freshman or sophomore. My sophomore year, he had gotten there because he was the new head coach when I went on the recruiting visit. Because on my recruiting visit at Maryland, I had to give the tour to the other recruits because the coaches didn't know where they were on campus, and I did.
Now, so you know who Bobby Ross is?
Yes, absolutely.
He ended up leaving. He ended up coaching in the NFL a little bit. He took the Chargers to the Super Bowl.
Kansas City Chiefs.
But he won a national title. Ready for this one? Georgia Tech.
Really?
Won a split national title in '90.
This is breaking.
So that's Bobby Ross. That's how good of a coach he was.
You take Georgia Tech to a national title.
Take Georgia Tech to a national title. They won a split title with Miami or maybe
Michigan,
Washington.
right?
No.
Michigan? No.
Michigan got one. They got a half a national title since the Depression. They have 97.
97.
So Bobby Ross, it was either Miami or Washington or Colorado because there was 2 years where the four of them split all the titles.
That's insane. I didn't know Georgia Tech split a national title. I didn't know
Maryland
was
the only time
one.
really that they were really any that legit, in my opinion, like on a national stage. I mean, they beat North Carolina this week, so.
Well, I do want to ask. Coach Franklin is a Maryland guy. He coached at Maryland.
He was the coach in waiting. Remember that?
Yeah, he was supposed to be the coach in waiting. So, do you feel like now in 2023 there's still some personal vendetta to go beat up on Maryland every chance he gets? Do you think he thinks about that still? It doesn't mean more to him?
I hope he wakes up every morning and says, "Thank God I didn't take that job."
Yeah, I think he lucked up, actually.
I think he says, "Thank God."
He's probably not mad at all, actually.
That athletic director came in and said, "You know what? That's not going to happen. Thank God that happened, and I can go to Penn State."
No doubt.
Dwight. No, but there's definitely a little angst between him and Locks now.
I can tell.
There's no love between those two.
No.
Because they were on the same staff together a little bit.
Yes, they were.
And Locks is at Delmarva. He's a Baltimore DC.
Think about our roster right now.
It's unbelievable.
You have McDonough and DeMatha High School battling for who has the most Penn Staters.
Yep.
We're neck and neck. And of course, I remind all my DeMatha kids to keep recruiting because we still have to stay ahead of Magruder. McDonough.
Yep.
But it's because, and see, this is where the kids, they don't remember. See, it was Steve Smith and I who came. We were the first two Penn State recruits ever to be recruited from the same class by Joe. Joe made his first exception. He would never recruit two players from the same class to Penn State at the same year.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you think we're going to go to a break real quick. We're going to get into that. I don't know what the hell that means.
Oh, that was totally – that was such an accident. Because
I want to talk about Steve and see how he's doing when we come back here.
Right. Yeah, stay tuned. We'll be right back on the Blue White Player Show. Talk more with Rogers.
Hey, Penn State fans, it's game time, and Ciocca is hitting the field with 42 dealerships and 25 brands in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. That means more choices and the perfect new or pre-owned vehicle priced to fit your budget. Plus, factory-trained service experts are just minutes away, and you can feel confident you're doing business with a family that treats you like family. We're a proud partner of Penn State Athletics and preferred dealership group of the Penn State Alumni Association. The Ciocca dealerships. Experience the difference.
Old Dominion. No Bad Vibes Tour. Friday, December 1st. Bryce Jordan Center. With special guest Chase Rice and Kylie Morgan. Tickets on sale now at Ticketmaster.com. Old Dominion, live in concert. Brought to you by Messina Touring Group.
It's frustrating when people intervene on you, but they have problems of their own. It's like when someone sends you a text, but the text comes from their email address. I hate this. Your name at iCloud, they FaceTime you from their email address? Are you calling on a child's iPad?
Emmy Award-winning comedian John Mulaney brings his new tour, John Mulaney in Concert, Bryce Jordan Center, December 3rd. Get tickets now at Ticketmaster.com.
WWE returns to Penn State's Bryce Jordan Center with the WWE Live Holiday Tour. Sunday night, December 10th, you'll see World Heavyweight Champion Seth freakin' Rollins, the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes.
May the best man win.
WWE Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley, Bobby Lashley, Becky Lynch, and more. Tickets start at $20. They make great holiday gifts. Get yours now at Ticketmaster.
It's Jeff Dunham on his all-new tour, still not canceled.
Yes, I make a living talking to myself, which means some forms of mental illness actually pay off. Was it bad that I unplugged my cousin's life support to charge my phone? Oh, shut the hell up.
Friday, March 22nd, Bryce Jordan Center. Tickets on sale now, only at JeffDunham.com. Don't miss them.
Silence! I kill you!
Jeff Dunham on his all-new tour, still not canceled.
Coast into fall with a new Kia from Lion Country Kia. Right now, get a 24 Kia Seltos for 5.25% APR for up to 48 months. A new Sportage plug-in hybrid at 0.9% APR. Check out our 23 Sorento hybrid for as low as 4.5% APR. And don't forget, all 2023 and 2024 Kias come with a 10-year, 100,000-mile limited warranty. Stop in and meet with one of our sales experts today and coast into fall at Lion Country Kia. We want to see you in a Kia.
Welcome back to the Blue White Player Show. We're having some fun times here talking about Halloween costumes. We'll save that for off the air, though. Want to thank my guy.
Thank God.
Yeah, no, that is not for the camera. Let's thank Rogers Alexanders for stepping up tonight.
Absolutely.
Had some issues with scheduling with some of the players today, being so deep in the season. So Rogers, appreciate you joining us today. It's always a great time, man.
Sure, no problem.
Call Rogers in. He's like, I'll be there, man.
Steps up. That's
absolutely all the time, man.
He is as dependable as they come. We had another story at the break that we wanted to get to.
Not his outfit, right? Not Sinead.
No.
Not Sinead.
No, you're talking about Steve Smith.
No, actually about
God rest his soul, but Joe recruiting you and Steve.
Yeah, Steve and I. Because initially, Penn State was there the second and third time at DeMatha to just check off some boxes about recruiting Steve. He was the number one running back in the country. He was the parade All-American. Stanford, every big school wanted him at tailback. Now, I don't know if some of you remember, he ended up being, one of our starting fullbacks. And then a fullback in the NFL for a dozen years. But the reason why I ended up at Penn State is because when they were there looking at film on Steve, back then before the internet, our film, offense and defense, was on the same reel. So as they were looking at the offense, they would fast forward through the defensive plays, and they went through a couple of series, and the one coach, John Rosenberg, asked my high school head coach, he said, hey, something's wrong with your film because there's the same defensive blitz 3 different times knocking the quarterback out within the film. And he said, no, did you look at the numbers on the quarterbacks? And he went back and he saw that it was 3 different quarterbacks that got knocked out of the game.
Oh, gee,
and
baby.
I was the person blitzing, knocking the quarterbacks out.
Terry Tate, office linebacker.
It was late.
It
was late in the recruiting cycle, so they had 2 scholarships left, and the other one went to Shane Conley.
I'm going to say this right now. Did they They obviously like skinny-legged linebackers. But
yes,
that
Shane and I used to get in arguments about who had the biggest calf.
Unbelievable. Last 2 scholarship offers, like, yeah, just give it to them, and then you guys both turn into All-American linebackers.
That is nuts. With the last 2 scholarships for the class.
Yeah, I was going to North Carolina on on a double baseball football ride. I picked up the phone, and something told me to hang up, and I took a walk around the block, and I came back and I thought about it. My mother had just passed away my sophomore year in high school, and I thought about how far it was that my dad was going to drive to see those games and then turn around and drive back home. And it was going to be 6 hours back then to drive down to Chapel Hill and to drive back. And it was going to be 4 hours here. And I started thinking about, okay, they really didn't have my degree at Carolina, but they did at Penn State. They had administration of justice. So school-wise, it was a better fit. But when I thought about baseball up here, I was like, oh, man. And baseball, I was a better baseball player and always was a better baseball player than football. Some of my relatives on my mom's side of the family are still mad that I'm not playing Major League Baseball. But yeah, that it's interesting how, things happen, and they happen for a reason.
So I got to talk to you. I mean, DeMatha they are constantly, it's a basketball metropolis. So now you're talking about football and baseball now. Were you playing hoops then? Did you go there to play hoops and you just started playing football?
Steve and I both won the JV championship at DeMatha, and then we had to pick because at DeMatha over the past, I think now it's 51 years, every graduating senior on the basketball team gets a full ride to college.
It's true.
So
this is true.
If you have the ability to get a full scholarship in another sport and you are playing basketball, they sort of discourage you from then taking another scholarship away from another kid, another DeMatha brother, because it's about, our school is a cult, so to speak, because
agreed.
It's an all boys Catholic school. About 12 or 15 about 12 or 15 years ago,
all boy Catholic. Yep.
Yeah. And about 12 or 15 years ago, the school had thought about having girls come in school, and we raised a couple $1 million over 45 minutes. Once that was said,
to not have
that happen.
And I completely agree. We all went to all male schools.
This reminds me of another funny one. So Steve and I were transfer students, and one of the first set of
show is what he's trying to do. He's trying to bait us into a third show.
So here we are, transfer students, right? So when I took my visit to DeMatha, they walk you in a certain way, right? So I walk in, I look over, and I see a couple of girls in the class with a couple of the boys, and I walk through, and I'm like, oh, yeah, this is nice. They got to wear uniforms. And I was coming from a public junior high school. So I had no association with DeMatha, didn't know what it was, other than the fact that it was a school that was known for its athletics, but also for its tough academics. And I just finished playing when I was before junior high school. I played CYO baseball, Catholic Youth Organization baseball, and my dad liked it. Being military and stuff, he liked the structure that the Catholic folks were giving us.
Yep.
But what I didn't know until my first day of homeroom, when I walked in and I asked the guy, I said, where are the girls in the class? And they started laughing in homeroom at me because I said, well, wait a minute. When I came on my visit, I saw girls downstairs in the math room. They said, yeah, that's girls from Elizabeth Seton for AP Calculus.
That's called bait.
Yeah. I said, they walked you by that on purpose.
Yeah, that was intentional.
That was intentional because the front doors were on the other side of the school, and they walked me in that door. Unreal. I never felt so foolish. And by then, that's it. When you're there, you're there. But what was, I think, so key about my high school is our coaches, they can't be coaches alone. Our coaches, when you apply to coach at DeMatha, you have to be hired as a teacher first and foremost. So it wasn't a change for me to come to Penn State and be coached by another teacher, because Joe was a teacher.
Yep.
And I was fortunate enough to be coached by 3 Hall of Famers in 3 different Halls of Fame. Morgan Wooten was the first high school coach to be inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame. And then, of course, my JV basketball coach, we'll forgive him for being Notre Dame's head basketball coach for a long time, Mike Bray.
Correct.
Was the coach that coached Steve and I, along with Joe Contafio and Joe Mahalik.
Mock turtleneck sweaters when he was coaching his back?
Yeah.
Mock turtlenecks.
But the DeMatha and the McDonough thing, and it used to be Calvert Hall, and the reason why Penn State and Maryland is so contentious is because all of the players that are from Maryland at one point or another have played against each other in now either AAU, because a lot of football players play basketball.
Yep.
So you've either played against one of your friends or you've played against each other in different teams. And it used to be the same way. But when in the 80s, what we used to say to ourselves was the reason why we won so many in a row is the guy at Maryland looked across at the guy at Penn State and said, yeah, when I visited and I chose Maryland as opposed to Penn State, that's because I didn't think I could beat that guy out.
Yeah, I wasn't good enough to go beat him.
I wasn't good enough to start, so I picked a place where I thought I might be able to start.
The OG, baby.
So you never know the psychological of whether that comes into play later on when you're looking across the guy going, I didn't think I would be able to beat you at that team, but I'm going to play against you.
So my brother, you guys played together. His best friend from high school played football at Maryland. My best friend from high school played football at Maryland. So there's always been that little animosity and a little go-to back and forth.
Yeah, it's fun being a high school football player. When you play at a DeMatha or a LaSalle, you play talent every week in high school.
I mean,
that is going to go play at a high level too.
He didn't mention DeMatha. I mean, he didn't mention Gonzaga, St. John's,
all kinds of
Council.
talent.
I mean, the defending Heisman Trophy winner is from Gonzaga High School.
Yep. Well, let me tell you a quick backstory. So on the Catholic school note, the playing talent, Sean Clifford was the quarterback at Moeller's rival high school. Sean Clifford and I were never friends. It was
St. X.
We played. It was a big route. I was a D lineman. He was the quarterback. The first conversation I had with Sean Clifford, the very first one, I'm 16 years old. I'm a junior. Sean Clifford throws a ball. He had a hamstring injury that I was aware about. I hit him as hard as I could. I kind of got up. He ended up throwing a touchdown on the pass. It was a great throw by Sean. He gets up and he looks at me. He says, "You're soft and you don't play hard," and jogs off the field right after throwing the touchdown. I had never spoken to him before. The next time I talked to him wasn't until I got to Penn State, and I see him in the locker room. I'm like, the last time we talked, you had some fighting words for me. Yeah. Then we had a good laugh and ended up being friends. But
So on my high school, it's just so funny. My wife will tell you, my high school rival was Bishop McDevitt, because that's the school I should have gone to. That's the Archdiocese Catholic School in Philadelphia I should have gone to, but I went to LaSalle. So this past weekend, a guy who I grew up, we competed against each other since 4th grade through 12th grade. You know, we went to rival grade schools and went to rival high schools and all that. Here we are drinking the whole weekend, tailgating and all, just laughing and joking, because it's all the same stories. We knew the exact same people.
Yep.
You know, it was awesome.
It's always a good time. Rogers.
Can't thank you enough, man.
Can't thank you enough. Always a pleasure when you join us, man. Thank you for coming on.
Sure. No problem.
We
never even got into when you were my roommate. We 2 shows now.
Right?
We still have not talked about it.
With Rogers this season.
My favorite roommate of all time, Rogers Alexander.
Stay tuned on the Blue White Player Show. We'll be back.
Ciocca Toyota of Williamsport invites you to stop in today or check us out online. We have the smart path to your next Toyota, like the all-new Crown, BZ4X, the all-new Grand Highlander, Corolla Cross Hybrids, Sequoias, and more. Over 100 new Toyotas here and on the way. Don't make a $1,000 mistake. Choose Ciocca Toyota of Williamsport and see the